What if fitness wasn't something you scheduled into your day, but something your day was built from? Architecture of Joy is a show about reframing health not as a gym habit or a calorie counter, but as a movement based architecture woven into the fabric of daily life. Walking, biking, building, participating. In this debut episode, host Daniel makes the case that the hedonistic, car and gadget-driven fitness industry has sold us a counterfeit, and that the real revolution is quieter, more human, and already available to all of us. This is a call not just to move, but to reimagine how movement shapes creativity, community, and the economy of our lives. My name is Daniel, and this is Architecture of Joy, building a life in motion. Because that's what this show is about. It's about the radical, slightly inconvenient, genuinely life changing idea that movement isn't something you fit into your life, it is your life, or at least it should be. Architecture of Joy. Let's start with a name. Where does it come from? When most people hear the word architecture, they think buildings, steel and glass, and blueprints. But think about it the way a structural engineer does. Architecture isn't just a thing that stands, it's the system, the arrangement of forces, load bearing walls, tension cables, the relationship between weight and support that makes a structure not just standing, but stable, functional, beautiful. Now apply that to your life. Your personal architecture is not just your body, it's the system of movement, habits, choices, and participation patterns that shape your body, your mind, and your environment every single day. Just like training a muscle reinforces a movement pattern, we can rewire the nervous system by the daily choices we make and how we move through the world, building the architecture that we then come to live inside. And here's what most fitness conversations completely miss. Architecture is not just personal, it's social. People who relocate to more walkable cities add an average of 1,100 steps per day with no deliberate behavioral change, per Stanford University Nature, August 2025. It's structural, and the way a building shapes the people inside it, the way a city's layout determines whether its citizens walk or drive. Your personal movement architecture is in constant dialogue with the world around you. So when I say architecture of joy, I mean this: the deliberate, ongoing construction of a life in which movement is not an addition, it's a foundation. A life where the act of moving through the world generates something far greater than calories burned or steps counted. It generates joy. And joy in this framework is not a feeling, it's an outcome. It's what happens when flourishing becomes productive, efficient, and self sustaining. The core cycle: movement, participation, understanding, joy, health, and movement. This is a reinforcing cycle, not a linear path. You do not graduate from movement to joy, you cycle through them, and each pass builds on the last. When you move, really move in the world among people, you participate. When you participate, you understand. When you understand, you find meaning. When you find meaning, you experience joy. And when you experience joy, you're healthier, and health fuels more movement. That's the architecture. That's what we're building. But here's the problem, and I want to be direct about this because most fitness conversations are too polite to say it plainly. The dominant fitness culture of the 21st century is built on the wrong architecture. And here are the four pillars of the wrong architecture. Pillar one, it's hedonistic. The mainstream fitness model is fundamentally about personal aesthetics and personal metrics. How do I look? How many pounds did I lift? What's my VO2 max? What does my before and after picture look like? I'm not saying none of that matters, but when those become the purpose of fitness, something essential gets hollowed out. Hedonistic fitness is fitness oriented toward personal pleasure and appearance, disconnected from social value, community, contribution, or productive participation in the world. It's exercised as a performance for an audience of one, or at best, for your social media followers. What is the result? You finish your workout. What drove us to the workout? Did we see a social media post or a influencer? So we feel some excitement. We see the results of an influencer, but we do not see the gap. We do not see the resources. We do not see the time, the cost that influencer both put in and receives. We are then stuck in a gap. We find that devotion and we want to work out and we discover the benefits. We feel good about ourselves, but we haven't truly created anything. We haven't truly created a genuine movement architecture for us to move in because it's not ours. And we haven't contributed to it, the architecture, because we are contributing to something that is not there. We are then in better shape to perform a function and a behavior that serves another purpose. It's car dependent. And this is pillar two. Here's the irony that should make you laugh or cry. Millions of people drive to the gym. They sit in traffic, they park, they walk from the parking lot to the building, ride the elevator to the second floor, and then they get on a treadmill and walk. The automobile has quietly siphoned an enormous amount of wealth. U.S. households spend an average of $17,000 per year on transportation, per the Union of Concerned Scientists, October 2024. Every mile you drive is a mile you didn't walk, didn't bike, didn't participate in the built environment you were passing through at 40 miles an hour behind glass. The car is not just a vehicle for many people. It has become an architecture of isolation, a private, climate-controlled bubble that keeps you from your neighborhood, your neighbors, your own body. I want to be careful here. Um, Hold on, let me back up. This is pillar three. Pillar three is gadget-driven. Technology is not the enemy, but the fitness tech industry, a $55 billion global market, which is growing at 15 to 20 cents per year, has built an extraordinary business around generating data that most people do not know how to use meaningfully. Heart rate zones, strain scores, sleep readiness, HRV, recovery metrics, step counts. These can be powerful tools in the right hands. But despite the wearables holding a huge trend for the last several years, the research does not demonstrate yet that wearables produce sustained long-term behavior change in a general consumer population. And we can see that per the ACSM Fitness Trends, February 2024. For most consumers, they become a substitute for body awareness, not a supplement to it. You outsource your sense of how you're doing to a device, and in doing so, you lose the practice of actually listening to your body. You become dependent on the measurement instead of developing the skill of movement itself. Pillar 4. The gym as destination. Put all three together, and you get the gym as destination model, fitness as a place you go, a time you block, a session you complete and then recover from. Exercise as an appointment, segregated from the rest of your life. This model treats movement as an add-on to life, rather than a substrate of life itself. And despite the record U.S. gym membership of 77 million in 2024 and 247.1 million Americans participating in at least one physical activity, 27.3% of adults remain completely inactive, per the Health and Fitness Association, October 2025. That this is a fundamental problem and a misunderstanding is why so many people, despite the gym membership, despite the wearable, despite the best intentions, still feel disconnected from their bodies and their communities. Exercise as performance generates no social or economic value. It keeps you in shape for a life you live sedentarily. We deserve a better architecture than that. When I was young, I kind of learned early to begin establishing my own architecture of movement. When the sun was up, I rose with the sun. It was one of my rules I developed early on. And one of the first things I did was I went outside, I'd get on my bike, play outside, climb a tree. I began sowing the seeds of the structural integrity to the architecture that would follow me everywhere I go, and to this day I still use and still strengthen. So, what does the right architecture look like? This morning, I was on my bike, and the plan was to record this in motion, but that failed. Too much wind. And this afternoon, I attempted to record on my walk, but that failed as well. These were not my workouts. These methods of biking, walking are just how I get around. And in doing so, these movements make my life stronger, make my social life stronger. I'm more aware of my community, and I have more access to participate in more social avenues throughout this participation, the architecture of my movement. And this is really interesting. When biking and walking are how you move through the world, your daily 60 plus minutes of physical activity happens not because you scheduled it, not because you motivated yourself into it, but because the architecture of your day demands it. The movement was already there because you slowly built it the day before and the day before that. The future then is waiting for you to stop driving past it, to stop ignoring it, and to start moving in the architecture that you've been slowly building. And here's what that feels like from the inside. And this is the thing that's the hardest to convey to someone who hasn't lived it yet. When you move through your city at human speed, at the pace of a bike or a walk, the built environment becomes present to you in a way it never is from a car window. You notice the architecture, the buildings, the facades, the way a street is laid out, the spots where people gather and spots where they don't. The beauty of the built environment becomes a motivator and a reward. And that noticing, that participation in the world you're moving through changes you. It makes you more creative. From a recent study, walking produces a large effect on divergent creative thinking with a Cohen's d of 0.93. This is very profound, and why I am so big on bringing this concept of architectural movement through society to as many people as I can. There is robust evidence that walking and cycling truly generate divergent thinking. This kind of open, associative, surprising thinking that underlies creative work. This this podcast, this idea, much of my creativity comes from walking and biking on a regular basis. And much of my creativity is done while I'm moving. This movement based lifestyle, a life in motion, the architecture that you build through this perhaps creative movement makes you more creative, makes you more courageous. Also, there is the reduction in prescriptions. Cycling commuters show a 15.1% reduction in prescriptions for antidepressants over 5 years. That is absolutely wonderful, and that is what we need throughout our society in larger percentages and larger numbers. There is something about choosing to be physically present in the world, exposed to the weather, sharing the road, encountering the unexpected, that builds practice resilience. You stop waiting for conditions to be perfect. You go anyway, uphill, into the wind. It makes you more values aligned. When your legs replace your engine, you start doing the math differently. You see how much of the economy is organized around you, getting you to buy things you could simply do for yourself. A certain liberating clarity follows from that. And perhaps most importantly, it makes you more participatory. You talk to people, you stop, you notice things. You become a citizen of your neighborhood rather than a commuter passing through it. This is not a lifestyle sermon for people who already have all the advantages. But physical inactivity costs the United States 192 billion annually in healthcare expenditures. This architecture of joy, this movement, this idea is designed to be accessible at all economic and social levels. The movement isn't the barrier. The barriers are structural and they are changeable. That's exactly what the show is going to dig into. The vision, the big picture, to be bold and imaginative. I'm calling it a bold and imaginative step towards the edge of what we currently know. Deliberately, not hyperbolically, but because what I'm describing is not a tweak to the existing fitness industry, it's not a new workout program or a better gym model. It's a fundamental reorientation of how society thinks about health, movement, and human participation. The revolution has several dimensions: structural and engineering changes, redesigning our cities, neighborhoods, and infrastructure so that movement is the default, not the exception. Bike lanes that actually work, sidewalks that go somewhere, transit systems that treat human bodies with dignity. This is not utopian. It exists in dozens of cities around the world right now: Amsterdam, Copenhagen, Minneapolis, Portland. This system could be built and scaled anywhere. An open, inclusive, diverse approach to health, one that actively dismantles the economic, racial, and geographic barriers that make movement-based living inaccessible. These communities most burdened by car dependency, traffic violence, and physical inactivity are precisely the communities that gain the most from movement-enabling design. Health as a driver of creative entrepreneurship and labor participation. When people physically vital, when people are physically vital, socially connected, and mentally creative, they produce more, contribute more, and generate more economic value. Movement-based living makes people more economically productive, and this is measurable. A cultural shift from hedonistic exercise to value-generating, community-building movement. From what does this do for my body to what does this do for my world? From fitness as performance to movement as participation. I've been building this life for a long time. I think this needs to change. I think it's possible for it to change, and I think the one who's going to help change it. I am the one that's going to help change it. I will lead this cause, this idea, this architecture of joy is something that I will commit to. It's not arrogance. That's my commitment. I have been already living it, and I'm going to commit to continue living it because it brings me joy, and I know there's an abundance of prosperity and benefits that can come from it if society takes this on as a whole. And I'm going to take it on because that's generally what I do. And that is episode 1. Please forgive me for the audio. I am still new to podcasting. And this is much of not only being new to podcasting, but still being new to speaking my ideas as clearly and coherently as I can to bring forth a inclusive, open dialogue and community where all can feel free to participate. Uh, Participate hopefully in a inclusive tone, a welcoming tone, where ideas can be exchanged peacefully and equally. And I'm going to work. Even when the conditions aren't right, I still walk to work. I'm still going to bike because if we wait for the perfect conditions, we will not move. The architecture will slowly collapse in on itself. We must continue moving on a daily basis so that we can strengthen the architecture of joy. The stronger it becomes, the more it will hold us up and it will deliver us through those moments of trouble, those moments where we need maybe a little bit of push, we need a little motivation. If we commit to building this architecture over a long period of time, it will commit to us. And I just have one ask before you go. If you're going to share the episode with someone who needs to hear it, someone who's been grinding at the gym and wondering why it feels like it hasn't been enough. Someone who's been meaning to start biking to work. Someone who believes, like maybe you do, that there's something better available than what we've been sold. Send it to them. Tell them Daniel said hi. And I'll see you on the next one.